Hello and welcome to KnightHunter Books. You may have seen in our last video we've not read a lot in the last couple of months. Turns out buying books is quite stress relieving. So we've got a haul.
And I'm not sure how these are all going to fit on our to-read shelf.
My first one is Sleeping Giants by Sylvain Neuvel, which is a genre story about a young girl who finds a hand of a giant statue in a cave, and later becomes a scientist studying said statues. And I don't really know much more about it than that, but looks quite exciting, and it's always nice to read SFF from new voices.
My next is the third book in the series by Cixin Liu that started with The Three-Body Problem, which is translated from the Chinese, and I got on really well with the first book, loved the first book. Second book, less so, so I'm really hoping that this ends with a bang and it brings everything together, because it's very long and I would not usually even think about reading a book this long.
But it's got the same translator as the first book.
That might make a difference.
Not the second.
Yeah.
So.
It is kind of sci-fi conspiracy on a large scale with lots of different characters.
My next one is The Power by Naomi, Alderman, which honestly I knew nothing about before looking at an offer table in Wardstones.
This one looks fun.
But it's quite a fun premise. Every woman all over the world is overnight granted the ability to inflict hideous pain or even kill men with a click of their fingers. Which, as you'd imagine, I'm assuming this changes power dynamics ever so slightly around the world, so that should be an interesting read.
My next is The Girl of Ink and Stars by Kiran Millward Hargrave, which I've seen around. I think it's won a few children's awards recently and sounds quite cute, following a young girl who I think has been told she's never allowed to leave her island, but then her best friend goes missing and she goes on an adventure to try and find her, which is quite a common setup, but...
And we continue the quest to find a middle grade that you like. Your own particular quest.
YA/middle grade.
Oh, okay.
We will see, but at least it's short.
My next one is The Smokies Rising by Mahesh. This looks to be a relatively literary book set in India of the future. India has just sent its first spacecraft to the moon, so sort of semi-science fictional. It should be noted that Waterstone's clearance tables are really dangerous.
My next, My Name is Leon by Kit Waal, which I've heard a lot of really good things about on BookTube, and I don't really know much about. It's set in the 80s from the point of view of a young boy who I think might be trying to get his family back together, or kind of stop them falling out so much. But I've heard it's really well written and really makes you feel for the characters, so that's what drew me in.
My next one is Stranger of Tempest by Tom Lloyd, which wasn't a series I'd actually been aware of, and especially considering I've had a bit of a slog recently with books, I figured something nice and light might be in order, and this looked to fit the bill. I know nothing about this at all.
It's got a dragon on the cover, so we're guessing fantasy.
Dude with this... Dude with the weapon in silhouette. I have no idea if that's...
Might be a shotgun.
It might be. Huh. Yeah, no, really I know nothing about this at all.
This is The General Theory of Oblivion by José Eduardo Agualusa, which is set in Angola and follows, I think, a woman who just decides to brick herself up inside her own house for a while. I have to say, the reason I've bought this is because I've actually read another one of his books a while ago, which was the Book of Chameleons, which I loved. I hadn't heard anything about the author before that. It's kind of magical realism. That one was a book from the point of view of a chameleon in a man's house who foretold dreams, I think, or it's all just a little bit strange, and I'm hoping for more like that, really.
My next one is Swordspoint by Kushner. It's actually been out quite a long time, but the world is much beloved, and there's recently been a collaborative sequel produced. Basically, cutting wit and cutting rapiers in a world where duels are a done thing, and duels with wits even more so.
My next is The Stone Gods by Jeanette Winterson. I haven't actually read any of her books before, but she's a very well respected author, more on the literary side. But this sounds pretty science fictional. It follows two people during the end of the world who get sent to a new habitable planet, the Blue Planet, to presumably explore and work out if it's a viable second option, which sounds like the sort of thing I like. And then we seem to have counted badly, so now I have another 2 books. This does bode well, seeing as I read less than you. My next one is In the Beginning Was the Sea by Tomas Gonzalez, which is another story about 2 people in a remote place. But in this one it's the Caribbean. So these people are looking to find their Eden, but it sounds like their Eden is not all that they expected.
More than the usual supply of snakes.
And then my last one is Beasts of No Nation by Uzodinma Iweala, which follows a child soldier in an unnamed African country. I think it's recently been turned into a Netflix show and is a book that I've been meaning to pick up for a long time. Oh god. That's more books than can fit on my shelf.
So, while we go and figure out where those are all going to live, feel free to comment below if you think there's any we should get to sooner rather than later. In the meantime, thank you for watching KnightHunter Books.